talk more about the humanitarian concerns after nearly a year of Russia's war in Ukraine. Joining us this morning on Asia First is Inger Ashing. She's a CEO of Save the Children, an international NGO aiming to improve the lives of children through better education, healthcare. They also provide emergency aid in natural disasters, war, and other conflicts as well. Inger, thank you so much for joining us. And first of all, with no end in sight to this war, give us a sense of what millions of Ukrainian children are going through right now, especially as they experience the toughest winter in recent history.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, the dramatic escalation of war in Ukraine is affecting every person in the country and children more than anyone else. I was in Ukraine about 10 days ago and met children and their families. One of the families I met told me about their experience under occupation, that they were suffering for the first few months of the war. And the mother was telling me how they were out without water, without electricity, how they had to ask their elder sons to go out and fetch water. And every day she asked them to go and fetch water. Every day she was worried that they wouldn't come home again. They had nothing, and they had to hide their food for it not to be stolen. To stay in touch with their relatives, the sons had to walk far distances to try to get connectivity with their phones. And they're still suffering from a lot of psychosocial mental challenges. Several of the children are not able to sleep, having nightmares. That is just one of so many families suffering in Ukraine right now. And yes, with winter, with the cold, without access to basic needs, millions of children are at harm.
It's easy to see and to understand sort of the physical challenges that people in Ukraine are struggling with. But tell us a bit more about the psychological impacts of war that you alluded to just then, particularly on children, but also those fighting that are not professional soldiers.
So I don't think, the hardship that children are facing is affecting them short and long term. Our latest report has shown that, in average, a child in Ukraine has spent over 900 hours hiding in bunkers, taking shelter. That is more than 1 month. And the experience of doing that will, of course, have long-term implications for children. They will have nightmares, etc. What we see is that, as in every war, the trauma of being in war is something that you really need help to be able to cope with. It's really important that that is part of the response coming to Ukraine and supporting children and their own families. Right now, as part of the work that children are doing, we are trying to ensure that families, caregivers, teachers, and other people around children are able to get psychosocial support in order to support children in their turn. Because the most important thing for children are the people, the adults close to them.
Absolutely. And there have also been disturbing reports on war causing an acute child protection crisis. Tell us about the risk of family separation, abuse, sexual exploitation, trafficking of children fleeing violence, and what your organization is doing to help.
Yes, so, there are many ways that the war is impacting and affecting children, and family separation is absolutely one of them. And we see a number of children being separated from their families. And it's really important to ensure that as soon as possible that we're able or trying to reunite them with their families, because that is the biggest protection mechanism and the most important thing we can do. We also see alarming reports of different violations committed against children. Reports of sexual violence, killing, torture continue to emerge, where we see little regard to international humanitarian law and international human rights law, and doing what we can to find the children, support them, and reunite them with their families is really key. as an organization, what Save the Children are doing on the ground is that we are trying to ensure that we support children in their basic needs, in their protection needs. One of the things that we are working with is trying to offer child-friendly spaces. That is a space where children can come and just be children for a while. Younger children will be supported to play, work with their hands, write, draw. Older children will have more of an opportunity to talk about their experience, their feelings in a safe environment. And I visited a couple of child-friendly spaces when I was in Ukraine 10 days ago, and it was really, heartbreaking to see how the children, when they were able to be together for a while, were actually able to come together to talk about their experience, laugh, and just be children for a while. And that is so critical for them. We're also supporting them with access to education. So many of children in Ukraine today are without access to school because of so many schools being hit by being destroyed and hit by missiles and bombs. And a lot of Ukrainian children are dependent on online education, and Save the Children are providing digital learning centers to ensure that they are able to catch up with and keep up with the curriculum.
And Inga, one last question for you. Given that, talk to us about sort of the long-term then concerns for the children of Ukraine, given that this war seems very far from over.
Yeah, so what is really critical is that we are all having a long-term commitment to support the children and their families in Ukraine. And us as an organization, we are there now responding to the acute humanitarian situation, but we're absolutely committed to stay long-term. It will take years to rebuild society, even when the war has ended, even when there's peace. So investing in resilient protection systems, investing in education is really critical.
And before I let you go, there are other children in peril out there around the world, living in other conflicts and war zones. How concerned are you that the situation in Ukraine is sort of taking the focus away from other global hotspots?
So what we can see is that there's a lot of attention on the situation in Ukraine and a lot of international solidarity. That is the positive thing. What we try to do as an organization is to advocate towards different governments to ensure that the solidarity that they are showing towards Ukrainian refugees is shown towards others as well, because we do see in several countries that there is more openness. They are welcoming Ukrainian refugees in a way that they are not necessarily welcoming refugees from other countries. And that is a challenge in itself. You cannot discriminate people, refugees. But the good thing is that many countries have shown that it's possible to have to welcome refugees in a respectful way, and there's learnings to be made coming out of that. But we need to make sure that this is not overshadowing the needs elsewhere. We need to be able to focus on and support Ukraine as well as responding to many other emergencies around the world.
Inga, thank you so much for your time this morning. Inga Ashing, the Chief Executive Officer of Save the Children.